While folks are joining, I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Kyle Kreider, the Program and Policy Director for Alabama Interfaith Power and Light and the People's Justice Council. For the last 18 months, we have been doing something we call From Resilience to Restoration under the auspices of the wonderful funding from National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. And our guest speaker tonight to help us kick off the official launch of From Resilience to Restoration is with the National Academy of Medicine. And since I'm showing 6:03, I'd like to go on and introduce our wonderful guest speaker. This is Funmi Chinekezi. She holds a master's in public administration, and she is the program officer, Grand Climate Challenge for the National Academy of Medicine. Funmi, let me turn it over to you, and we look forward to hearing more about what you are doing and how complementary it is going to be to what we have been doing.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to be chatting with you all this evening. As you mentioned, my name is Funmi Chinekezi. I've been working as a program officer with the National Academy of Medicine for about a year, coming up on a year and a half now. And so I'm really excited to be talking with you all this evening about an initiative within our overall National Academy of Medicine Climate Grand Challenge, which is the Climate Communities Network. So I will just jump right in. So as I just mentioned, the National Academy of Medicine has a grand challenge on climate change, human health, and equity. And this grand challenge has an overarching goal of improving and protecting human health, well-being, and equity by working to transform systems that both contribute to and are impacted by climate change. The grand challenge has 5 strategic objectives, or as we call them, work streams, 5 strategic pillars. And they're listed on the slide here, really focused on communicating the climate crisis as a public health and equity crisis, decarbonizing the U.S. health sector, developing a roadmap for systems transformation, and so on and so forth. But integral to all of the work of the Grand Challenge is the issue of equity and health equity. And that's where the Climate Communities Network really, I would say, shines or thrives. So let me progress and really hone in here. So this diagram is just showing the 5 pillars, as I mentioned, and the Climate Communities Network being integral to all of the other pillars, as well as the overall Grand Challenge. We really see the work of the Climate Communities Network as operationalizing our health equity work within the Grand Challenge, but really integrating into the broader Grand Challenge overall. And so its position in the diagram is such that we want to communicate this as a foundational to the Grand Challenge. So health equity, the Climate Communities Network, it's foundational to the overall Grand Challenge. So wanted to highlight that. And it's also circled because that's the focus of today's presentation. So I will start off with a brief overview of the Climate Communities Network and then dive a little deeper into some of the components of this particular initiative. So our rationale for standing up the CCN is rooted in the truth that I know we're all aware of, which is that marginalized communities are rarely engaged in an equal or equitable way when it comes to decisions which impact their health and well-being. And the climate crisis is obviously no exception. And we know that this is exacerbated by existing structural inequities such as racism and poverty, all of which compound health inequities in this country. So that's really why we wanted to stand up the CCN. And then in terms of our purpose, so the Climate Communities Network is really an opportunity to engage, to center, to amplify the expertise of communities in areas in the U.S. which are most negatively impacted by climate change to address health inequities and catalyze community-led action. The network does have two initial charges. One will be to, as I alluded to, inform the strategic direction and outcomes of the overall climate grand challenge, and then work collaboratively to identify and develop solutions to climate-related health inequities. And so now I will talk a little bit briefly about the impact framework. So this is, oh, sorry, I have a very sensitive mouse today, or mouse pad, I should say. But the impact framework, I was saying this is really exciting for us, and we anticipate that this might evolve over the years. But for now, we anticipate leveraging the work of the Climate Communities Network to address structural drivers of climate-related health inequities. And this means working on issues related to funding, policy, and more. And so we see these as our impact areas. So you'll see the research and data here, you'll see capacity building, and then you'll see youth engagement, which was a fifth and most recently added area of impact that we realize is critical to this work. So you'll also note some of the corresponding examples for each of these potential focus areas or impact areas. You'll see these as our anticipated outcomes. And so some examples include having community-informed federal, state, and local policies, more equitable community-driven investments and innovative funding models, having more representative and actionable data, broadening and expanding the knowledge and use of climate and health tools and resources across the U.S. So really thinking about not just broadening, but scaling up as well. And then a mobilization of younger generations, which I mentioned. So we're really excited about that. And again, this will evolve as we learn what our members' needs are, what their priorities are. But we really see this as the areas in which the CCN can make an impact. The other thing I did want to mention before moving on, because I will talk a little bit about some of the key players of the CCN and some of the key roles that will exist within the Climate Communities Network, I did just want to share that an overall anticipated impact of the network is that its collective work will elevate community expertise and wisdom, as well as the fact that those communities directly affected by any issue should be the ones driving the solutions to those issues. And so that's what we really want to be the theme and the core principle of the CCN. And we're hoping that we can make an impact in that way as well. And so the Climate Communities Network will involve two primary groups of key players. So there are two roles within the network, and these are the members and strategic partners. So members are the core group. We see them as the core group of community leaders working for community-based organizations. And we requested applications for this opportunity earlier this summer. And so those closed, and we have some late-breaking updates that we'll share with you later. But just wanted to sort of characterize these key players. So members are the core group of community leaders. Importantly, they will represent their organizations as well as serve as liaisons to their respective communities. And they will also work with one another, strategic partners in the NAM, to advance their community's priorities. And so complementary to our core group of members, I just mentioned strategic partners. These will be governmental and non-governmental organizations that are invited to serve in this capacity, and they will really serve the role of advancing community priorities by providing guidance to NAM staff and support and resources for network members. We see this as being a unique aspect of the network, and I will expand on this role a little bit later in the presentation, but first wanted to provide some additional insight on CCN members. So running through our eligibility really quickly, for members, we specify that CCN or applicants must be at least 18 years of age and work for a community-based organization in a U.S. state or territory. We requested that the organization be physically located within the community it serves. That was very important to us, and only one applicant per organization. The organization, we want it to serve a community that is disproportionately impacted by climate change and climate-related health inequities. And we wanted the organization to be engaged in, or at least planning to engage in work that is related to climate change and that promotes health equity. And so our selection process, as I mentioned, we opened up applications earlier this summer. Applications were open for 8 weeks, and we used a mix of traditional and innovative promotion methods, which I can talk a little bit about later in the presentation. But we landed with a total of approximately 70 final applications, which was really exciting for us, as our goal, I think, was 50 to 100 applications. So we were kind of like right in the middle of our goal. We were really excited about that. And then in terms of the application review, it was an extensive 4-phase review process, which just concluded within the last few days, actually. And we had 4 key criteria that we were looking at. The first criteria was geographic location, and you'll see that that is starred because I will talk a little bit more about how we identified which communities and organizations were most impacted by climate change based on where they were located in the US. And then the second criteria is relevance to CCN goals. The 2 goals that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation, alignment with our focus areas. And so the focus areas I talked about being policy, research, funding, and then organizational commitment, because again, we really thought it was important for the organization to be located in an area that was disproportionately impacted, but also be engaging and are planning to engage in work as it pertains to this intersection. And then our application review process concluded by really our team coming together after this 4-phase review process and ensuring that we had a good mix of final members. And so we wanted diversity across multiple categories. So topics, obviously diversity in regions and locations across the US. We wanted diversity in terms of race, ethnicity, and age, especially given our youth engagement impact area. So we looked at all of these different categories to ensure that we had a really good mix of final members. So I will talk a little bit, the next couple of slides talk about our review process and our selection process. So we requested, the NAM requested and supported the University of Maryland's Center for Community Engagement, Environmental Justice, and Health to conduct a regional assessment of the US. And they looked at where, how, and to what degree climate change is impacting the health of communities. So our request for applications and review process was informed by a novel mapping resource created by Dr. Sakobi Wilson's team from the University of Maryland through this collaboration. So the UMD team created a unique composite score, which they termed the Composite Environmental Justice Score. This score quantitatively determines the disproportionate impacts of climate hazards and related health inequities at multiple geographic levels. And because we wanted this initiative to really be like hyper-local, we use this score at the census tract level. And so really trying to get as granular as possible in terms of the impacts that communities are experiencing and who we select to be part of this network. As I mentioned, this is really expanding on that geographic location criteria that I mentioned, I think, on the previous slide. So the CEJ score was prepared using geographic information system analyses and existing publicly available reputable mapping tools and databases. So some of the mapping tools and databases that were included or leveraged to create the CEJ score were the EPA EJ screen, the FEMA National Risk Index, the CDC Places, the CDC Environmental Justice Index, the White House CEQ Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. So lots of different tools were used and leveraged to create this one composite environmental justice score. Also wanted to mention that the CEJ score aggregates layers of data under 5 primary domains, which include climate change, health, socioeconomic indicators, environmental exposure indicators, and environmental pollution indicators. And I will expand here a little bit. So this is not an exhaustive list at all, but we did want to highlight the sample indicators per domain. And so we sort of pulled the ones that we felt were most relevant here, but it's definitely not an exhaustive list, and we have the full list available if anyone is interested. But for climate change, you'll see examples such as coastal flooding, heat wave, hurricane. For health, the asthma, heart disease, poor mental health were listed as indicators, or were included as indicators. SES, race, ethnicity, low income, less than high school education, and then environmental exposure and environmental pollution. I did want to highlight those two data domains because those were included particularly because they can also fall under the umbrella of environmental justice. And we understand that climate change and environmental justice are inextricably linked. And so that's why those were included. And then also wanted to flag the inclusion of upstream drivers of climate change, such as CO2 emissions. That was really important to us. And then the score also gives us information about mitigating and resilience factors. And so looking at things like lack of green cover. The environmental justice indicators were included because we understand that those can be a proxy for disregard, disinvestment, as well as less capacity to respond. And then finally, legacy pollution. So Superfund proximity that you'll see on here, that signals baseline vulnerability as well as decreased capacity to respond. And so the UNB team was very, very thoughtful in developing this resource, and we were really excited to be able to lean on that as we selected members and moved through our application review process. And so what you see here is a map of the contiguous US with CEJ scores by census tract. The deeper the red, the more highly impacted a community is, according to the CEJ score. And more information about the CEJ score is available on our website. So we actually do have a web page that expands a little bit more about everything I've shared, as well as where you can get additional information. So I will try to find that link. Maybe once I pause for questions and put that in the chat, or I can always follow up via email if anyone wants to request it. My email is at the end of the presentation. So, but just wanted to emphasize here that more information is available should you be interested. As a late breaking update, I'm happy to share that applicants were notified this week of our decisions regarding CCN membership. I cannot share specific details just yet, but a formal public announcement will be coming soon. So we are very, very excited about that. You'll see later in the presentation when I talk about our timeline that this has been in the works for a very long time, for over a year. And so it was really nice to sort of be able to reach that milestone after over 1 year of planning and preparing and working on launching this initiative. So, but I did want to share that update as well as the sort of distribution of applications that came in. So we were really excited. Across the 70 applications, we had representation from over 30 states as well as Puerto Rico. And then we had representation from a number of US regions, so ranging from the Northeast and Midwest regions to the Gulf of Mexico region and the Southwest. We did notice that some priorities and themes across the applications included extreme heat, air pollution, food security, water quality, green space equity, and mental health, which was really something that we're excited to be seeing more about, the mental health component in particular. And then I also wanted to share another exciting update that our work with CCN members, particularly in the Gulf region, will be done in collaboration with our partners from the National Academies Gulf Research Program. So we are very, very grateful and excited to have their support. We look forward to building on their great work as well as maximizing our long-term impact in the Gulf region. So very, very excited about that. I'm very excited. We're very excited. So those are some late breaking updates, sort of how we wrapped up our selection process for the CCN. I will talk very briefly now about the complementary role of strategic partners, just a little bit of a deeper dive here, and then we'll talk about timeline and next steps, and we can get into questions. But wanted to just expand here a little bit. I talked about who strategic partners will be for the CCN. We really want these individuals to possess decision-making authority within their organizations, and really meaningfully engage with, respond to, and provide deep and tangible support for the priorities, needs, and opportunities identified by the CCN members. And this, we're really expecting them to provide support across all of the impact areas that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. And so strategic partners, they will be able to share not just tangible resources, but actionable expertise and direct response to member needs and priorities. We really see this as a multi-directional partnership between the NAM, CCN members, as well as other strategic partners. And we believe that this type of relationship and this facilitation is one of the main things that makes the CCN unique, just being able to make those direct connections and really bring some tangible resources to the work of the members, the very important work of the members. In order to be considered as a strategic partner, we have a number of qualifications that we were considering. In addition to a dedication to health equity and authentic community engagement, we want our strategic partners, as I mentioned, or alluded to rather, to be able to leverage their organizational platforms and resources to advance the priorities that are expressed by network members. So again, this is still going to be driven and informed and really led by the work and the priorities and the needs and the values expressed by network members. We're looking to strategic partners to provide perspectives from multiple sectors as we do this work, as well as create access to or even innovations across our currently scoped impact areas. So again, research, capacity, funding, policy, and youth engagement. So we expect our strategic partners to actively participate in the network. In addition to attending meetings, we expect them to really help co-develop the CCN's overall work plan and help promote CCN activities, as well as participate in evaluation activities to assess the impact of the CCN. So I will talk a little bit about our commitment and our vision before talking finally about our timeline and next steps. So in doing this work, the NAM remains committed to co-creating opportunities for both members and strategic partners to collaborate, share with, and learn from one another. You will see themes of information exchange, mutual support, and networking throughout the bullets on the slide. So those are the themes that are really important to us as a network, or as we cohere the network. So information exchange, mutual support, and networking. Ultimately, we know that this work requires great trust, patience, and humility. And we are committed to leading with those principles as well. Our vision for success. I will share that we want this work to be community driven. I think I've said that a number of times already, but it's super important. We want it to be community driven, and we hope to build a sustainable community of practice. We know that both members and strategic partners will be key in bringing this vision to life. And so we're really grateful and excited to be we're really grateful and excited to really be able to bring those two groups together to form one network. So our timeline, I did want to share the process. I mentioned this has been over a year in the making. So we started last July. We broke this up into phases. Phase 1 was really all about gathering and applying internal input. So getting our sort of internal house in order. As I like to say, that was phase 1. We just got ourselves organized, and that was July of last year. And then December of last year, we started to really gather and apply external input. And so we hosted a public listening session last December to really hear from the public, what this what this network should be. Are we going in the right direction, or have we missed something? How should we promote the opportunity? Who should we involve? Who should we engage? And we got a lot of really great input from the public, and we took the time. We actually extended our timeline because there was just so much great input that came in. So we extended our timeline to really be able to thoughtfully apply the input that came in from the public in terms of how we should roll out this initiative and how we should stand it up and the things that we should consider in doing so. And then we opened up applications, as I mentioned earlier, this summer. And now we are preparing to launch the CCN. So it has been a journey. We were very excited to be at this point, as I mentioned, but did want to just share excitedly that we are in the launch phase finally for the CCN, and we will be spending the next couple of months just onboarding and cohering the network. And so we will be doing lots of onboarding in the month of October for the selected members. These will involve one-on-one meetings with each member, as well as an orientation. And this will be grounded in a photo voice project, which is being led by artist Annie Levy, as well as her team. So what we are doing is learning a lot more about members' priorities, about their strengths, about their visions for the future regarding their community, as it pertains to climate, health, and equity. And we're taking this and visually sort of representing it, and that will be available publicly at a much later date, but we're getting that process started now, and that onboarding will inform this project. And then we will be getting the network together in November. For the first time, it'll be a hybrid meeting, hoping to really start to build relationships. So this meeting will prioritize this first initial meeting of the network, and of course, the future meetings will be prioritizing not just relationship building, but trust building amongst members, strategic partners, and the NAM and the academies overall. We will start to identify different topics and regions where there are themes bubbling up. We'll really be focused on alignment. So how can we start to identify natural pairings based on topics and regions? And we'll also be looking to crystallize our impact areas, our structure, and more. So the goal is really together that we will paint a clearer picture of what the first year of CCN will look like, and definitely the years beyond. So I will stop there and open up the floor for any questions or reflections. I just wanted to thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Funmi. Yes, for our guests, please feel free to unmute yourself. Come on video if you like, or if you're unable to, feel free to type the chat, and happy to respond. While folks are thinking, this is both a question and a comment. I'm so excited to hear about the overlap with the Gulf Resource Program, because from Resilience to Restoration, of course, is a Gulf-centered project. We have partners from Florida to Texas. We had really hoped to have more of our partners on the call tonight, both for the celebration and to hear you and interact with you. But I'm looking very forward to learning who getting that announcement of the actual folk down here in the Gulf, because we look forward to working with y'all in any way we can. Hopefully there will be lots of overlap with the frontline communities that we're involved in our restoration plan.
Absolutely, yes. We, as I shared, I can't say enough how excited we are. And the announcement, we're hoping to make that next month. And so that will be an announcement of who our members are, but also really highlighting the Gulf region. And I can definitely foresee overlap. And regardless, I think I can speak for our team when I say we're very open to collaboration in any way that we can make that happen. You know that's super important to this work. when we're better and stronger together. So we're really looking forward to doing some great things, not just in the Gulf region, but across all of the regions. And we know GRP has been very involved and just very active in that region. Definitely want to just build on that work. And so it's a very exciting partnership for us. And yeah, it's more to come soon.
Of it. For folks, well, tell you about any questions. Um, Again, I apologize that more of our actual partners could not be here tonight. But we do have. I see Morris Mott from Mississippi. Welcome, Morris. Please feel free to interact and engage. I'll mention our partners by name in Florida. So, from Resilience to Restoration is a three-tiered program. The idea behind this program being that we're all doing resilience work already. But like the wise old coach says, you can't win if you only play a defensive game. We're trying to shift the focus and move the dial, if you will, from resilience to restoration. For purposes of our grant, we're reporting on three restoration concepts or under three big chapter headings, if you will. There's of course ecological restoration. There's economic restoration, or when you're dealing with frontline communities, that's really economic elevation because there's a there's no historic high point to restore to. We need to elevate our frontline communities. And then, of course, since we, People's Justice Council and Alabama Interfaith Power and Light, are both interfaith organizations, we're we were very pleasantly surprised. National Academies really liked our third approach, which was ecumenical. Now, historically, ecumenical has meant Christian interdenominational, but as interfaith organizations, we're using it in a truly interfaith sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why ecumenical? Well, we already know that houses of faith and frontline communities are serving as resiliency centers. And Funmi, I'd love to get your perspective on that from any personal experience or insights. And so, we naturally wanted to work with frontline community houses of faith to shift the focus to restoration under the three E's.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, from a purely theological standpoint, we've got a lot of toxic theology to combat. A lot of toxic theology has gone into getting us into the degraded environment and destructive political situations that we're in now, and we'd like to counter that. Let me stop talking and let Funmi or someone else respond.
Well, I can chime in, but would love to hear from anyone else on the call. So when we were first, I would say, conceptualizing the CCN when it was just an idea, right? We talked a lot about faith-based communities and how to engage them, and we recognized that it was very, very important. This also came through during our public listening session and also in just other meetings and forums where we've been asking the same question, right? Who else needs to be at the table? Who should we engage as we launch this network? And that has been a consistent theme. It's been important to us from the beginning, and we've heard it consistently over the last couple of months. We are hoping to be able to do that through the CCN. And we know that there are groups like yours and so many others who are already advancing this work. And so that's where the collaboration piece comes in. We really, really want to be able to support in any way we can communities who are working at that intersection. And faith-based communities are, like you just pointed out, extremely critical in this fight for climate justice, health justice, environmental justice. So that is something that is on our radar, and it's something that we're looking to other experts like yourself to really help steer us in the right direction. And we understand that, as I mentioned, GRP, particularly in the Gulf region, has extensive experience and history sort of building these relationships. And so we just want to support and maximize that in any way that we can with CCN. So I'm definitely looking to you and others to share your expertise, any recommendations that you have. I think things will become a lot more clear as we develop our CCN work plan. And that will really focus on, how are we going to work across these various impact areas? What is our strategy going to be? And then, we'll move into implementation. And so, again, all expertise and support is welcome.
Thank you very much, and likewise. I see a note from, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Marin Book in the chat. Funmi, are you able to see that, or I'll be happy to read it?
Yes, I do. Aren't facing the same level of climate vulnerability. Oh, is there? Hold on. Oh, I see. There's an earlier one. I'm located in Pittsburgh. Similar challenges. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Monthly environmental education event. Thank you so much. I need to save this link. I don't want to click it now and then it takes us elsewhere, but
I can drop my email.
Yes.
But there's instructions at that link to get on my email list, and I don't want to sidetrack the event here. Just, it's great to have connections far away. And we are facing petrochemical build out and have been for a few decades, but the Gulf Coast has been for many decades, and it's so much more intense down there, and we often foster connections. I'm sort of surprised there aren't more people, because I got wind of this event through the People versus Fossil Fuels organization. I don't know if anyone else is here from there, which is a nationwide network of people fighting this stuff. So
no, that's
We're nice and informal. We've got plenty of time. So I'm sorry. Let me go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying that's really great to know. I'm like jotting this down and would love to connect directly. And my email's also at the end of the presentation, but I would love your email as well. And yeah, I think we're in a very fortunate position with CCN, where we're just like a sponge soaking up as much as we can so that we can really make this initiative effective. And evaluation is going to be critical to that, which is something that we're going to dedicate time and energy to. And we've already learned so many lessons. Just getting to this point, we've learned so much, and I would love to continue to be able to improve, for future years of the initiative. And, even if it's not a one and done, right? So it's exciting in the sense that even if we don't get to everything, in our first year, there's opportunity in future years to improve, to expand, to bring in additional issues, additional communities. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm learning a lot, and I just appreciate all of the information being shared, because
there is
helping us.
There's certainly a lot of faith-based groups working on these issues around here. I'm not part of them, but we have Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light and other parallel groups to many of the ones that are down there.
Thank you so much. We have a I don't know what we're calling it now. It's some kind of database that we've been building out for over a year now. And so we don't want while we are working directly with a handful of CCN members and local communities, we want our impact to be beyond that. And so we have a database of organizations across the country, across all regions, across sectors that are doing work related to climate, health, and equity and environmental justice. And we've been thinking very critically and for a long time about how to engage with those organizations, if they're not directly part of the network. Because again, we want our impact to be beyond that. And so any ideas or suggestions are welcome. We've been thinking about how to do this thoughtfully, but also mindful of like our team and our bandwidth. But we know that we want to not only share what we're doing with CCN, but allow it to be useful for those who may not be formally part of the network. And so any ideas there, as I mentioned, are...
Well, certainly communicating what you have done so far and what your efforts are mostly focused down south. But I mean, there's certainly no National Academies level similar effort here, but there are university level, there are community level, often run from within a sort of kept going by a particular nonprofit, but the environmental justice for Greater Pittsburgh, and I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and so most of the stuff we do is in this region, but it's heavily fracked, and the petrochemical industry has begun to move in. We have one operating cracker plant, and then of course in Baton Rouge to Louisiana, there's 50 miles and 70 facilities, or 50 facilities and 70. Anyway, it's insane down there. And we have certainly had many events in which we have welcomed to learn from and try to assist people who are battling this stuff down there, where it's, the climate impacts are worse and the chemical exposures are worse. But just fracking, it took years to get the state DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, or Don't Expect Protection, as it's often nicknamed, to commission a study from the University of Pittsburgh, which found some health impacts of fracking in terms of birth weight and cancer, but didn't, and definitely asthma. But the way the study was designed kind of missed some significant effects, because most of the fracking is happening in the rural areas. And when your kid has asthma, you take your kid to the local health center. But when your kid has cancer, you take them to the big city children's hospital. And so, but the study was looking at local health facilities and the stuff that they were dealing with. So, but it did at least confirm what people had known for a while about some conditions. And there are other, here we have the steel industry. So a lot of coal in them our hills around here. And so Pittsburgh is long famous for the steel industry, and a lot of the steel industry left and went to Japan, where I guess they figured out better ways to do it. But we still have some, and the single biggest polluter by a lot, just today in another meeting, 97% of the benzene in the air of Allegheny County comes from Clairton Coke Works, which is also the biggest polluter in many other things. And a coke plant is a big, very, very dirty facility which burns coal to dry, it kind of smolders coal to drive off all the volatiles, and you wind up with pure carbon, it burns hotter, and I think it's also the source of carbon in carbon steel. So it's a necessary part of the steelmaking process, but it's very dirty to process the coal that way into coke, which is just sort of like lava of pure carbon.
Yeah.
So anyway, but our problems pale in comparison to the Gulf Coast with much greater hurricane vulnerabilities. We're inland, we get localized flooding, but we could get a little warmer, a little cooler, a little wetter, a little drier. And apart from the localized flooding, it wouldn't be crisis level. We are seeing, and we will see, I'm sure in the future, a lot of climate refugees from other places where it's unlivable. So I think about all these things a lot, and I make a lot of connections. But again, I don't want to derail. I want to hear from other folks too. I guess most of you are probably from down there.
Well, but on that topic, one of the things that we wanted to announce as part of our launch is, while From Resilience to Restoration was specifically a Gulf state grant and program, we are actively seeking funding for the next step, which is what we're calling take restoration from the Gulf South to the whole South. And we're not stopping there. If we if we possibly could go on, we certainly will. So and I said earlier, this was a 3-tiered system. Our national hub is available to anybody. And thanks to Climate Advocacy Lab, a recent grant from Climate Advocacy Lab, we're putting what we have learned, what worked, what didn't work, in a toolkit form for folk anywhere to adapt as they develop their own local restoration plan.
Well, just noting, one of the things I do around here is make connections. So when you are ready to expand up into Appalachia, feel free to reach out. The putting Salon in the subject line is partly to ensure that I will find it, because I get way too much email, because I do know everybody and I'm on way too many lists. So
we know the feeling.
Yeah. So
the feeling. I just put my email and mobile number in the chat. So we will be sharing this video with everyone who registered, and please, anyone, please feel free to reach out with questions, comments.
Yes, I skipped forward to my last slide, which was a thank you, as well as my personal email address and our climate communities inbox. So either one of those will work just fine. But yeah, and the previous slide was just a thank you to all of our funders, including the Gulf program. And now I've ended the slideshow and I don't know how to go back. So but did want to just share that. And I can also put my email in the chat as well, which I will do now. The last thing I'll say is Maren, all of what you shared and the additional points you made, Kyle, remind me of something that we are intending to do through the Climate Communities Network, which are plan and host a series of learning collaboratives. And we're really seeing this as an opportunity to bring together communities who may not necessarily be located in the same area, but might be experiencing similar challenges or different challenges, and an opportunity to sort of share from their perspective, about the same challenge or different challenges and what's going on in their region and what they've learned and where gaps might exist. And so it kind of lends itself to that topical and geographical alignment that I mentioned. So we really want to see how that will work with the network. And the goal, I think, will be to make those learning collaboratives collaborative and public, and not just only focus on member communities, but other communities that might be in the same region or dealing with similar topics. And definitely will be an opportunity to have guest speakers come and really share their wealth of knowledge and talk about projects and research that they have that's going on. And so I think that'll be a really cool opportunity for us to sort of expand on what we're doing within the network. And so that's something that I know in year one, which will start technically in a couple of months, year one of the CCN, that will be a priority is planning these learning collaboratives. And I know at first we will try to focus them on, of course, the issues that are important to members as expressed by members. And then there's an opportunity to sort of go even beyond that. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, very cool. Yeah, around here, just seeing this be at a federal governmental level with the academies is interesting, and it is rightly focused in the Gulf Coast or the Gulf South, or whatever the right term is. I'm up here in Appalachia in the Northeast. But there are, it's, as a government body, it's the National Academies is an arm of the government, right? So the materials and the techniques and the tools that you produce then can be shared and should be shared widely across the country. So there are somewhat similar things done at different levels, all with philanthropic funding in our neck of the woods. So being able to draw on tools that you guys produce will be great, because everything the government produce should be freely available, right?
Yes, that is true.
Like,
but I did want to clarify that we advise the government
gas well maps,
but we are a non-governmental organization.
Oh, okay. It has national in the name.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I get asked that a lot. And when I first started working there, I was also confused until I went through the orientation for staff. And
okay.
So but yes. Thanks for that link, Kyle.
Yes, I just wanted to share our web landing page as we are starting to develop our national resource. So all of those links go to the same place, but we encourage y'all to explore our. We're using a tool called the Brain to handle what we call the national hub, our actual restoration hub, and that is some of the information that we'll be putting in the toolkit for folks to. But yes, we'd like to thank the National Academies for all of your support, and Funmi, you and the National Academy of Medicine in particular for your presence here tonight. We really appreciate your time. We are recording this, so hopefully it will get lots more views on our webpage and YouTube channel. But I'd like to open it up one more time for any last questions. Closing statements.
Yes. Mississippi has to say something. My apologies.
Bless you, Morris. I was hoping you would.
Yes, I'm actually driving to my daughter's soccer game, so I apologize for being so silent on the call, but I'm absorbing all this beautiful knowledge. I appreciate you being on the call, and I just like to acknowledge that this is we're living in a world, in a climate that we've never seen before, we've never experienced. This is the hottest it's ever been. And I think that, my brother being a doctor, he always says that we're going to start seeing diseases and plagues that we've never experienced before. And I feel like we have to do something. This is crunch time. And I'm glad to be on a call with like-minded individuals. I appreciate, us the giving us the opportunity for this, and sharing all of the information that we can share. Living in a disenfranchised community, there's a lot of sick people, a lot of people with asthma, as you said. It's just a lot going on. And, my main thing now is, this is, you have a lot of people on fixed income, and how climate justice affecting the elderly people that are on fixed income, because now they can't afford the electricity bills. And all of these. It's one thing that I work at an auto factory, and one of the conversations that we have about coal ash and EV vehicles, it's something that the federal government won't invest in alternators, right? Because now we're going to be using more coal ash, but all we need is like something to recharge batteries or whatever. but I'm just, I'm just rambling, but I'm just extremely happy to be on the call. And thank you, Kyle, for putting this all together. All right.
Yeah, can't wait to highlight all the wonderful work our partners like Morris, Mississippi Rising, um, Coalition are doing throughout the Gulf South. So yeah, we got more celebrating to do, and we're treating this as our first cohort. We not only want to expand the program, we want to do a second and third and so forth cohorts down here in the Gulf. So appreciate y'all. I'm really sorry. Among the folk who couldn't be here tonight, our own executive director, Rev. Michael Malcolm, and operations director who keeps us straight on all this grant stuff, is Jerry Friedman. They're actually on a plane to California. They've got a meeting on the West Coast and can't be with us tonight themselves. But I'll close the way Rev. Malcolm would normally close us out. Peace, love, and light. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank